A child's bedroom. It's supposed to be a sanctuary, right? The safest place in the world. But on one stormy Valentine's night back in 2000, that sanctuary was completely shattered for one family. We're going to walk through the official story of the unending search for Asha Degree, a case that, even now, leaves this huge question mark hanging over a small town in North Carolina.
This is the question, isn't it? It's what haunts this entire story. I mean, think about it. It all started on this really stormy night. The power was out, the wind was just howling. How does a little 9-year-old girl who's tucked into her own bed just vanish? Into the rain and the dark? It just doesn't make sense.
So, let's dive in. This all begins, of all days, on Valentine's Day. But for the town of Shelby, North Carolina, February 14th, 2000 wasn't about love. It was the day a family's entire world just fell apart.
Okay, so before we get any deeper into the case, it's so important that we know who we're talking about. This isn't just a case file, it's a person. This is Asha Degree. When she disappeared, she was just 9 years old, about 4'6", 60 pounds, just a little girl. It's so important we remember her face.
And that date, it's just so chilling, you know? Valentine's Day 2000. You've got most families thinking about cards and candy, celebrating, but for the Degree family, their day started with an absolute nightmare. They woke up and their daughter, she was just gone.
All right, let's get into the timeline. What actually happened in those critical hours? Because the timeline we have is, well, it's pretty precise, but it's also just deeply, deeply confusing. Let's try to reconstruct that night.
So this is where the mystery really takes a turn. At 2:30 in the morning, Asha's dad checks on her. She's sound asleep in her bed. Everything's fine. But then, just an hour and a half later, around 4 a.m., something unbelievable happens. Multiple drivers on a dark, stormy highway start reporting that they see a small girl all by herself just walking along the side of the road. Then, a couple hours later at 6:30 a.m., her mom goes in to wake her up for school, and the bed is empty. Asha is gone.
Now, as you probably know, in any missing person case, those first 48 hours are they're everything. For Asha, this kicked off a massive search, but you could feel the clock ticking. And the answers, they just weren't there. And they pulled out all the stops right away. I mean, the alarm was raised immediately. You had the local Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, and they were quickly joined by the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, and then the FBI got involved. Seriously, every resource they had was thrown at this. It was a desperate race against time.
And this is probably the most frustrating part of the whole initial investigation. Those brief sightings, from the drivers on Highway 18, that was it. That was the last confirmed trace of Asha. After that, absolutely nothing. The trail went completely cold, just vanished, almost as quickly as she did.
So for over a year, the case just sat there. It was totally stalled. There was no physical evidence at all. And then, a breakthrough. And it came from a really unlikely place.
Can you just imagine the agony for her family? I mean, think about it. Over a year goes by. No clues, no real leads, absolutely no idea what happened to their little girl. The silence must have been just deafening. Then finally, 18 months after Asha vanished, that silence was broken. A construction worker was digging along that same highway, Highway 18, but miles away from where she was last seen. And he hit something. It was her book bag, and it was buried. Just buried in the dirt. This was the very first piece of physical evidence they found. And what's crazy is, to this day, it's still the last. So that bag, it gave everyone this brief glimmer of hope. But ultimately, it didn't lead anywhere. And so the days just kept turning into weeks, and the weeks into years. The entire investigation had to change, It wasn't just a search for a lost little girl anymore. It became a search for a woman who never really got the chance to grow up. I mean, the passage of time itself is like a character in this story. 20 years. That's a whole generation. Her family and the investigators, they never, ever gave up hope. But the picture they had in their minds of this little girl, it just wasn't accurate anymore. So to keep the search alive and relevant, forensic artists did something incredible. They created an age-progressed image. And it's really haunting to look at, but it's such a vital tool. It's their attempt to bridge that 20-year gap, to show the world the woman Asha might have become. It gives investigators, and of course her waiting family, a new face to look for.
And look, this isn't some forgotten case. This quote here is from the FBI on the 20th anniversary of her disappearance. They said, 20 years after the mysterious disappearance, the FBI and local investigators continue to actively search for clues. I mean, that's a huge statement. It confirms this is not a cold case just sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere. It's still very much active and ongoing.
And that brings us right up to today. The search for Asha Degree is still going on. It's really driven by two things that are just unstoppable: her family, who absolutely refuse to give up hope, and law enforcement, who are still so committed to finally bringing her home.
And to try and generate new leads, the FBI has put up a pretty significant reward: $50,000. That's not just a random number, you guys. That's a statement. It tells you they truly believe someone, somewhere out there, knows something that can crack this case.
And the terms are really clear. This reward is for the kind of information that breaks the whole case wide open, something that leads to an arrest and a conviction. It's basically a direct appeal, begging anyone who's holding on to a piece of this puzzle to please finally come forward.
So, after all this time, we end up right back where we started, with that same haunting question that's been echoing for more than 2 decades now. You've got a family that's still waiting, investigators who are still searching, a whole community that is still hoping for an answer to this one question: where is Asha Degree?